everyone. So, grounding your life with data. Yeah, it's a big discussion. Even my speaker today, my guest was like, Paula, that's a bigger discussion, But listen, data can help you grow and flourish both personally and professionally. This today, I have my guest on is going to be Patti Brownsord from Grounded with Data, and she's going to share. So let's go and find out. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm super stoked to have Miss Patti on this morning. Um, she hails from Florida. She's in a BNI chapter with, BNI is a very international organization. So we meet folks from everywhere, which is super exciting. Actually, I don't know if you know that if you got a chance during the pandemic to like go to international chapters, that was such a fantastic learning experience to meet those members from all over. But, good morning, Miss Patti. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thank you. And how are you?
I am doing pretty good this morning. I'm just making sure I adjust your volume there and I can hear you. So this morning, of course, we have Patti Brownsord on. She's one of the partners at Grounded with Data. And I think people don't realize it's like they hear, and I know you guys are doing it right now. You hear the word data and your eyes just rolled over and glossed over a little bit. But I'm going to say slow down because we want to lay this out in a very simple format for you this morning, and let you understand why it also leads into your business, but also your personal life as well. Miss Patti, how did you get around to even starting this business to begin with?
Well, I've always been a bit of a data nerd. And I think it started with my training at an ad agency here in Orlando because I was 21, 22 at the time. And I was telling these destinations and hotels where I was recommending how to spend their millions of dollars. It was darn sure important that I use data to make those recommendations. I didn't have the luxury of saying, well, I've been around for so long that based on my experience, I know this, this, and this. So I had to use research that was done by the ad agency. I had to find research outside. I had to do analysis of the campaign's performance the years prior and make recommendations that were effective and targeted when online was just becoming a thing. But so we did a lot of mass media. And so I had to make those recommendations. So since then, I've always been a proponent of using research before you start making any decisions.
Any decisions at all. It's like, I have one client, he gets super excited about ideas, very much a visionary. And they're fantastic ideas, but they're like this all the time. And my new thing, and he's embraced it, which is, okay, we're going to breathe on this and we're going to speak about it tomorrow
Yeah.
and find out if it's even, because you have all the ideas and things. Let's look at some things and talk about it tomorrow to tie in. And now he's like, absolutely, I'll speak to you tomorrow. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm making notes of like so much, but it's nice to get him to that place where he wants to hear about the numbers and
Mhm.
is the idea logical. Of course, it's hard for business owners, right? Because some things are very visionary. I mean,
Mhm.
who could have thought of the iPhone?
Yeah. Yeah.
There was no real data on that except for Star Trek. you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that when working with clients first, whether it's about making recommendations on how to make decisions, or even when you're coming up with visioning ideas, always remember what your North Star is. And in that, it's like, what is your goal? What is the end reason? What is the why? And so when these numbers or these ideas get thrown at you that sound good and are shiny, the first question is it a part of the North Star? If it's not, should it be? But if it's not, then it's something that can be set aside. So that helps with the reducing the amount of shiny objects that might be thrown your way. And I like the idea of the pause for sure, because I also am a idea visionary person.
Yeah.
And it's, ooh, what about this? Oh, what about this? And, my business partner, Dr. Jack, and I, we always come up with great ideas. And then it becomes, well, what's actionable? What's practical? What's our North Star? With where we know we want to be in 10 years, does it align with those activities? Or is it a fun flurry of activity, but it's not impact, right? And so
Right.
that's another thing to always consider, is what you're doing impactful, or is it just an activity that makes you feel busy and happy that you're doing something?
See, can I tell you about Patty? I love that, by the way, because I think it's so important that even the data nerd people, you heard it, said, let's stop and find out what your soul says first. What's your heart? What's your why to how you're running the business?
Yeah.
And I know that you hear it from even from us marketers all the time, but it's so important before you even approach the data nerds, because they want to hear that as well. And I'm sorry, if you go to someone who's just researching and not asking you that question, there's something wrong with that person that you've hired. You put the wrong butt in the wrong seat for you,
Mhm.
So what else do we need to know before we start, Patty? Because I know if I don't think that how do I know that the actually this is a question that I know you were saying that gets tossed back and forth pretty often. How do I know if the data that I finally decide to collect is good? So now we have our why. We've had a discussion about where we want to be in 3, 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, as we're collecting, how do we even know that data is good? What are we looking for?
Sure. Well, you when you're collecting data from your customers or clients, one important thing you have to always think of is, how will they feel if they know I'm collecting it? But also,
Mm,
like, why am I collecting it? Is it to help me move forward, or is it, once again, just like a weird, shiny, nice to have? And so that's why you have the North Star. And inside of that North Star, you have your goals. But your goals should be tied to numbers that make up that goal. And so, for instance, like with revenue, you have a revenue goal, but inside of that is the amount of sales you've made times the sales quantity. So it's not just important to track the goal number, you have to track I call them the key performance indicator numbers. But even with the key performance indicator numbers, if the number goes up or down, how do you know that? I mean, down is bad, but how do you know what happened? So it's not just understanding what the formula for the goal is. You have to dig deeper. And so
yeah,
grounded with data, we call them micrometrics. I'm pretty sure it's a Patty.
micrometrics, I love that.
Many of those come up as Pattyisms.
Yeah. I
But
may be stealing that. I'm just throwing that out there. If you
no
hear
problem.
me using it like it's mine,
Yeah,
I will
no
try to
problem.
remember.
Yeah. And you have to be very distinct on understanding KPIs and micrometrics when I build this, when I say this framework, because the micrometrics are then the formulas that fit the KPI. And so those are the levers that if you hit those micrometrics, or one goes down but the others stayed the same, then this one is the one that you need to focus on to get everything up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
No, absolutely.
yeah, so it's these micrometrics. So when it comes to the quantity of sales, then you look at other specifics that lead to that quantity of sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the question becomes, well, how do I know what I'm collecting is good? Well, everything you collect can roll up to something that matters,
Yeah.
right? If you're just collecting it and you're like, well, what am I doing with this information? And there's more to it, yes, numbers, but then there's qualitative stuff. So if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
trying to
I
understand.
mean, but once you have the quantitative stuff, it's
Mhm.
easy to sit with the qualitative, right? The hard stuff,
Yeah.
and it really says more. And
Mhm.
something, this is one of those things that's always been on my mind because, of course, as a business owner, we throw around a KPI because we get it, right? You
Mhm.
don't want to find out what happens at the end. You want that metrics you want to see along the way. And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that folks, because listen, entrepreneurs, business folks have a way of smiling through stuff. This is why the show was started, to up level you guys. And so in your private space, as you're sitting at your computer, we have the expert on who is going to explain this. So it's about looking at things along the way. And I added the word personally this morning because it's related to your personal goals as well. Because listen, I hear people, I want to lose weight. I want, I want to work out. I want to do this. I want, because listen, it helps your business too if you're in shape, right? If you take care of yourself. But there's no, like, what's your goal? How many times a week are you going to work out? When are those days? What time of the day are you going to work out? How long are you planning to work out? Do you notice I'm telling you numbers?
Mhm.
You know,
Oh,
how often am I going to weigh myself? For
yeah.
me,
Oh,
what's the goal,
those
right?
are actually the micrometrics,
Oh, I love it.
right?
See, there we go.
Because
Talk.
those are the micrometrics that make up the KPI of weight loss. But what's the goal? To feel my best self.
Because we go back to the why.
Why? So when it comes to personal, so yes, you can ground your life in data personally too, because one of the biggest things we always say with grounded with data is some of the most important data points are about looking at yourself and understanding how you operate and keeping track of how you perform at your best and knowing what that means.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
while for marketing, marketing goal is revenue, but the personal goal is that like personal why, right? And then
Yeah.
inside of that is the KPI of, well, if I want to feel at my best, then the KPIs are I've got I'm hitting a weight goal, but I'm hitting a BMI goal because I know I have a girlfriend that she's so short and so light that she doesn't exist on the BMI. So be careful of BMI in general. But if you have those as KPIs,
Yeah.
but then the micrometrics underneath are then that's the levers. So if you want to go 3 times a week, are you hitting that micrometric? If you're not and you're not reaching your goal, you noted what to change, right? And so on this personal level, that helps you maybe identify what you can do organizationally or operationally. And so that's what to keep in mind is all of those are steps. And that's what the micrometrics are, because those are
I love
levers that you pull, right?
I love it. I love that, Patty, because really, we're talking about weight loss, but really it's just an example to
Mhm.
show you that really it's applicable to so much else. I know during the pandemic, some people started drinking too much. How do I reduce drinking? How do I manage my mindset? How do I read more? How do I spend more time? How do I repair relationships? But it really is all around data.
Mhm.
And so if you don't have those micrometrics, which I love that phrase, by the way, if you don't have those micrometrics, as my a mom would say, by an inch it's a cinch, like Pauline, like how many times can you say that, man? But it's true. Like having that little step, I want to change, I want to be different, I want to improve my business. What are those little micrometrics that I have to hit, right? Those milestones. So let's roll this back into business. For those smaller business owners who are looking at this and saying, well, I don't know if I can afford a big research project right now. I may be able to afford Patty in a couple of years. But what can I do right now? Because I'm not great with numbers. So how do I do it myself and be comfortable with them?
Right. Well, we have, another thing you might like is your data literacy journey. Where are you? It's okay. It's a traveling trail of learning new things. And are you at crawl? Are you at walk? Are you at run? Um, are you in the middle of a toddle? Where are you? And that offers you the ability of where you can start. If you're in crawl, it's at first just building an appreciation of data. We work with clients that are at the crawl stage because we act as strategists. Because when they come up with the idea of like, oh, we'll do this and this thing and this thing, and it's like, well, how will you measure success? And they go, oh, thank you for asking that question.
We're just going to spend a lot of money. Like, isn't that how it works?
Yeah, and it's like, so how will you measure success? And then they go, I don't know. And it's like, well, what does success mean? well, I didn't think about that. And so we act, when our clients are at the crawl stage, we just act as data strategists. A lot of the times I have one client that I spend twice a month for about an hour just learning what her organization is planning on doing. And I move them to that data lens of, well, is that going to be what you want as trackable, or will your board ask, how is that, what was successful? And in some regards, it's, well, let's start asking you, what does success mean? And so with what does success mean, there are all these components. Well, let us look at everything from that, that's happened and see, well, what was successful? So it's no longer your gut feeling of what has happened well before and what could happen in the future to track it correctly. So that's with crawl, is just starting to be, I wouldn't say data driven, even data inspired. And starting.
You make it sound so beautiful, Miss Patti. Can I ask you a big old question though? Because one of the things I'm hearing for business owners or even people running their own book of business is it sounds like there's a really tied in relationship between what you do and maybe having, I don't know, like a freelance CFO or or a great relationship with your bookkeeper or accountant. It sounds like there's a big tie-in for the financial and structure of your business. Because I mean, personally, on the marketing end, I can't work with someone if their operations isn't structured right. And the finance is part of that because I have no way of grabbing basic data
Sure.
from their system, like which one of your products is doing the best right now. What should we really be putting our efforts on?
And not,
I
and
don't
not
know.
only not only which one's the best, but what do you operationally have the capacity to do,
There you
right?
go. There you go.
You as the marketer can be like, we're going to double your sales, and then it's like, well, do you have the ability to perform the result, on the operations end? So really, the marketing has to align with operations. It doesn't. You could really create a terrible customer experience, or the stress of your operations team for building your widgets or executing your uptime of getting clients on board. So it really, it all matters. And so, thank you for relating us to like a CFO type
Yeah.
from here.
I mean, because it really makes sense, doesn't it? And I mean, it's, because like I said, even on my side, just, I ask those questions sometimes and there's no clue because there isn't a proper financial model structure where we can go to and look at the revenues that are coming in and just those basic things, you know what I mean? And so for someone like you, bring in a data scientist, is what I'm gonna throw. I'm giving you titles here. A data scientist.
Yeah.
Where do you start with a company like that? Like, so, as small business owners, mid-market level companies listening to you right now, before I get to a Patti, what do I need to have for her? And what should I be thinking about?
Sure. So just to wrap up the CFO thing, like I
Go
like the
for it.
compliment, but we're more of like a CDO, a chief data officer. The CFO will still do like financial things for
Yeah.
annual stuff. However, it's the CDO's responsibility to make sure that the financials are clean in terms of what the CFO would need to make those strategic decisions. So anyway,
So let me ask you a question then. You just brought something up that's amazing. Should someone be tapping into you and your partner on, let's say, every 6 months, a year, with that information from their CFO?
um,
It's like we are looking to grow. We are looking to add a new product.
mhm.
This is the data that we accumulated this year. Can we have an evaluation
Yes.
for our marketing plans
Yep.
coming up for 2023?
Yeah.
Should
That's
we be
yeah.
including grounded with data um,
Yeah.
in the process? I mean, let's call it what it is. So
Yeah, no, I would say yes, yes, definitely. We we consider ourselves like the marketer's best friend. But we're the marketer's best friend because we can be an advocate and an ally to the chief operating officer and the other people that handle the product or project management of the operations side. And we're a shining light for the CFO because all of the numbers are always so clean that it helps them be able to do financially things. But for the CMO and the COO or the operations person who handles making the widgets and things, having us analyze the sales, the quantity, the time to ship, the the demand, the website traffic, the drop off of the shopping carts online or in-store traffic or whatever those things may be, we can help measure the past performance. And if this data that's clean enough, that's a big one, clean enough and long enough, then Jack can do his magic and start making some predictions of what could happen. Once again, if you move those micro metric levers, because we'd know what those are, he would be able to know the weighting of those micrometric levers to say, well, if you increased this one by this much, which wouldn't overwhelm your ability to do the capacity, then we could predict that your sales would be X.
I'm loving this. I'm loving everything that I'm hearing right now. And business owners, book of business managers, sales guys, are you hearing it too? Someone got a little fussy with me this week when I told them about it's like, what I told you earlier. It's like I've been, I manage my referral list, but I haven't been managing in the way that I met this couple from Canada when I was on vacation in Jamaica recently. They're like, how do you work your 100-person referral list? I'm like, what is this list you're talking about? And so they gave me their process. I came home and I built it. So of course you're seeing things and behaviors that you didn't really see when you see all the numbers together.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That's a big point. We've worked with lawyers before. We've worked with ourselves of identifying, like, because when we were doing this process with this company of lawyers, and we said, well, how do you know who to give Christmas presents to at the end of the year? And they were like, well, I mean, we give them to the people that show that, are kind of on our radar that we know of. And I was like, well, what about those that are your sneak attack referrals? They just support you and throw stuff your way, but they're not coming in. They're not making a call. They're just, and you're tracking who in your CRM, where that person came from. So why don't you look at that information and see if there's anybody that rises to the top? And so they were like,
can I tell you, by the way, one of the lists that, it's funny that you said that, because one of the lists that I started looking at were those people that we take for granted who always supports us online.
Yeah.
There are people who have been so amazing to me, sharing my items, reading it, reaching out with questions, sending referrals because of the show. And I haven't been counting them as referrals because the digital landscape is still such a wild west, basically, right? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to put them on as well. They need to have a special category, and I need to just do that. You know what I mean?
Need to buy them a basket of wine, but send them a $20 ABC gift card for Christmas and be like, hey, thanks.
Exactly. Why not? Right? It's like, I mean, they've been amazing. So hey, we're getting to that end of the show, and I want to, we've given the viewers so much to really process and think about. I know Andy Chingalani is going to be watching today. Hi, Andy. I just want to say hello. He said to tell you, hey, Patty. What can you tell the viewers as we wrap up? They want to get started. They've gotten some great information today. What's the next step for them as they move forward?
I would recommend going to our website, groundedwithdata.com, and going to our resource page and taking that data literacy journey. That's right, data literacy journey assessment.
I know. I still love the phrase.
But that offers you advice on whether you're at crawl, walk, or run on kind of what to do next. We have lists of micrometrics for if you're a business that's a service, or a business that's a product, or if you're a law firm, because they wanted to feel like they had their own, it's really almost the same as a business as a service. Eventually, in a month or so, I'll be able to put up micrometrics for if you're a nonprofit. So
Oh, I
that,
love that.
I've been working with my nonprofit friends in Orlando to kind of craft something that would be a good starter for anyone that's in the nonprofit realm. So we have those resources. We also have little bit of what I said to Paula today, everyone. The reason why it rolls off the tongue so easily is Jack and I just did a podcast on the subject of goals and KPIs and metrics, and it's on our YouTube page. It's called Business 100. And if you want to first get started, understand first what your why is, and then start to break out the math for yourself of what you should be measuring. And then qualitatively, always ask the question, do I really need to know this of my customer? Because the customers don't like to be asked things when they're like, why would you ask? So just always keep those in mind. North Star is the most important, I think, because there's been many a times where as consultants, people go, what about this idea? And now, because we use crawl, walk, run with everyone, sometimes I'm like, oh, that idea, it's jetpack. Back it up. Back it up. So
Well, it's kind of the American phenomenon, right? Historically, people looking over the neighbors' backyards, right? And go, oh, look at what they're doing, but you have no idea about what their life is. I mean, we encounter the same thing as we're designing website. Look at what they're doing. And so sometimes they even want to grab some content from here, grab and put something together, but it's not your story. It may sound amazing for them because it might be their North Star, right?
right.
But is it really yours?
Mhm.
You know, I love that. I mean, we're always asking clients whys, but you put it in such a beautiful way. Patty, thanks so much for being on the show today. Listen, guests and folks who are watching, I know you guys are going to catch us on a replay as well. Please reach out to my guest today. I will drop her information below so that you can check her out. If you're ready for marketing at that point, reach out to powermarketingsf.com. We'd love to have you. As always, our continued mission is to continue to introduce you to what we call everyday experts, to share and up-level business owners and people who run their own book of business. As always, guys, we here every Thursday at 10 a.m. on LinkedIn Live. So this is a live show, we're not pre-recorded. And so please, thank you, guests. You continue to amaze me. And thank you, Miss Patty, for being on today. I want to end the show with a quote. I think it will wrap up everything that we talked about today. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Sherlock Holmes. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Miss Patty. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for giving me your time. Take care. Keep moving forward.